February 27, 2021, Colorado was left stunned by Brian Kohee's horrifying crime. This teenager mercilessly took the life of Warren Barnes, a homeless man, and kept his severed head in his own closet.
To start back to the beginning and go slow and tell me as many details as you can remember.
So, because Murray going to jail for 15 years probably.
I have no idea.
Because
we're at the beginning.
It's murder.
Here are 10 evil kids who confessed on camera. On October 5th, 2012, Jessica Ridgway, a girl from Westminster, Colorado, didn't make it home from school. 2 days later, her school backpack, which contained her glasses, was found on a sidewalk, while her dismembered remains were discovered in a park. So, what really happened during those 2 days? Let's go back to the beginning. Like many girls, Jessica Ridgway was taught to be wary of strangers and to scream if someone tried to grab her. These warnings were evident in a notebook she kept on her desk at school. Messages like "Do not play at the park alone" and "Watch out for strangers" were scribbled in her notebook. But danger was always lurking nearby. Just over a mile away from Jessica's peaceful suburban neighborhood in Westminster, 17-year-old Austin Sigg had a fascination with mortuary science from a young age. His parents would send him to a faith-based counselor in hopes of guiding him in the right direction. However, those efforts were in vain, and so when Austin would cross paths with Jessica, tragedy was inevitable. Surprisingly, Austin's interest in mortuary science was viewed as unusual but not necessarily alarming. Later on, during an interview with investigators, Austin's younger brother recalled a slightly creepy comment his brother made about learning how to kill people and be able to get away with it. What's even scarier is that a friend of Mindy Sigg, Austin's mom, remembered conversations they had before Jessica was kidnapped. Mindy joked about her son's interest in body decomposition and mentioned helping him practice restraining someone with zip ties. As time goes on, Austin's addiction would grow quietly, leading him to view disturbing images of minors being assaulted, strangled, and dismembered. And eventually, just watching wasn't enough for him.
The scientists, all that stuff, it comes with that morbid territory. And I wasn't faced by anything that was morbid that they could show me.
4 months before Austin took Jessica, he attempted to kidnap a woman jogging at Kettner Lake by using a chloroform-soaked rag. Luckily, the woman fought him off and called the police. Despite that failed attempt, Austin didn't give up. He waited and targeted someone smaller, someone he could easily overpower.
So you were out, for a better word, hunting?
Yeah, that's the only word I can think of.
That's when he saw Jessica walk into school, just a short distance from her home. He quickly grabbed her from the backseat of his Jeep, tying her hands and feet with zip ties. Jessica, confused and scared, asked him who he was and if he knew her mom.
I lied to her. I would tell her that everything was going to be okay, and I would just lie to her.
Later in his room, Austin said that he tried to calm down Jessica by removing the zip ties, playing cartoons for her, and promising she would see her mother again. But this would never happen. After a short while, Austin instructed Jessica to change out of her urine-soaked clothes and pack her things into a backpack. Then he told her to turn away from him before he strangled her and then dismembered her body. October 23, 2012, Austin was arrested after confessing to his mother, who then called the police so her son could turn himself in.
I need you to come to my house. My son wants to turn himself in for the Jessica Ridgway murder.
After his arrest, Austin's defense attorneys argued that his actions were impulsive and that he struggled to understand them.
Start beating really fast, and I couldn't think straight.
However, prosecutors and court testimony suggested that Austin, who pled guilty to all charges against him, spent months planning and researching, including searching the internet for chloroform recipes and the top 10 places people get abducted. November 19, 2013. Austin was given life imprisonment because he wasn't eligible for the death penalty due to his age at the time of the crime. Following his sentence, he was transferred to an undisclosed out-of-state prison for his safety. June 26, 2013. 15-year-old Conrad Schaefer went on a deadly rampage in Kissimmee, Florida, killing 2 people just for the thrill of it. The first victim would be David Guerrero, who was fatally shot on his way to catch a bus for work. Not satisfied with this, Conrad sought to kill again, and just days later he would. On July 3rd, Conrad, along with David Demus, Victoria Rios, and Juan Muriel, whom he had only known for 2 weeks, broke into Eric Rupenaren's home in Ponciana. David Demus shot Rupenaren in the face with Conrad's gun, and then Conrad proceeded to slit the man's throat. Initially, authorities didn't link the two murders until they discovered the same .45 caliber rifle had been used in both the shootings. This rifle was traced back to Conrad's father, who later revealed that his son had stolen that from him. On July 19, 2013, police finally arrested Conrad Schaefer. He initially acted clueless and kept saying that he couldn't do life in prison. He would keep crying until they brought his dad in to help calm him down. And then Conrad kept repeating that he was sorry.
What do you want from me?
I just want to go home, man. That's all, boy. I want to get out this room.
Can I be honest?
I'm sorry for everything.
After a while, his father managed to calm him down, and he became more cooperative. He told the police that Demus shot Eric Rupenaren in the face, and then they stole several items from the house.
Alright, well, I'm just gonna say this, and seeing how I don't care about my life anymore. David shot this kid in the face.
Later, during the interview, the detectives were shocked when Conrad admitted to randomly targeting people for fun. What's even scarier here is that Conrad got caught trying to get more ammo.
Why would you buy the gloves for?
I bought the gloves because I wanted to go take the gun and shoot it.
Conrad was given 2 counts of first-degree murder, armed burglary, and grand theft for killing Eric Rupenaren. He was also charged with some drive-by shootings in Kissimmee, but luckily no one got hurt. During the investigation, it was discovered that Conrad's father, Lothar Schaefer, had purchased the firearm just 2 days before the first murder. Now everyone thought that Lothar knew about his son's plans. On August 2013, Lothar was arrested for negligence and enabling the unlawful possession of a firearm. He ended up with 4 months in jail and 2 years on probation. As for Conrad, he pled guilty to the murders and waited 3 years for his sentence. On April 15, 2016, during his sentencing, Conrad's lawyer asked for a 40-year sentence, saying that Conrad had changed and could be rehabilitated. But the judge wasn't convinced and gave Conrad 2 life terms for the murders.
We're all in for murder. I lied.
April 2011. Seath Jackson, a teenager from Florida, was tragically lured to a mobile home by his ex-girlfriend, Amber Wright, and a group of her friends. They brutally killed him, ending his dreams of becoming a UFC fighter before his 16th birthday. Now, Seath had been dating Amber for 3 months, but their relationship would take a turn for the worse when he suspected her of cheating with 18-year-old Michael Bargo. That breakup was messy, with both Seath and Amber airing their resentments on social media. At the same time, Michael Bargo had a strong dislike for Seath, believing he had abused Amber, who seemed to be pitting the guys against each other for attention. Eventually, this led to a confrontation at Seath's home, where Michael threatened him with a gun. Now, Michael, already having a criminal record, was openly flaunting his gun around, but the dangerous path he was proud to walk on would soon catch up to him. April 17, 2011. Michael and 4 others, Kyle Hooper, 16, Justin Soto, 20, Charlie Ellie, 18, and Amber, would come together and plan Seath's murder. Michael asked Amber to trick Seath into coming to Charlie Ellie's house that night, where they would attack him and Michael would shoot him. Amber texted Seath that evening, pretending she wanted to work things out, and asked him to go meet her there. Now, Seath was suspicious at first, but Amber reassured him and he agreed to go. When Seath arrived at Charlie Ellie's trailer, he was completely clueless about the lurking danger, because Amber had totally deceived him. As Seath was busy talking to her, Kyle Hooper hit him on the head with a wooden object, and Michael shot him with his .22 caliber gun. Despite being injured, Seath managed to stumble outside, but Justin Soto would tackle and beat him down in the front yard, while Michael shot him again. The boys took Seath back inside, where Michael continued to hit and shoot him until Seath was dead. So after tossing the lifeless body wrapped in a sleeping bag into a blazing fire pit, the group would decide to use bleach the next day and get rid of any evidence. Then they drove to a secluded water-filled rock quarry in Ocala, where they dumped the remains of Seath Jackson into the depths. The guilt got to Kyle Hooper pretty quick, as he unburdened himself to his mom while watching a news report about Seath's disappearance. Soon enough, the whole gang was caught and charged. Amber Wright, Kyle Hooper, and Charlie Ellie acted surprised at first that Michael wanted Jackson dead, but the truth eventually came out when the three were put in a holding cell together.
They're gonna be looking for us if we get out of this.
Why?
He'd murdered because of us.
Michael escaped town for a while, but the cops caught up with him and arrested him a few months later. In June 2012, all defendants were sentenced to life in prison for Jackson's murder, except for Charlie Ellie, who managed to get released in 2020 after pleading guilty to a lesser charge. But Michael Bargo, the mastermind behind the murder, got the worst of it. He was sentenced to death, making him the youngest inmate on Florida's death row. On December 19, 2016, 16-year-old Sonny Christopher Kim tragically took the life of his older sister, Ashley, by shooting her 8 times in their Martinez, Georgia home.
Yes, it is socially and morally wrong.
Right. And didn't you think you were going to get in trouble if that was to happen?
Yes, I was certainly going to be apprehended by this.
Sonny had always been considered exceptionally talented from a young age. He showed a keen interest in computer science early on and quickly became proficient in the field. By the age of 13, he had already secured a job with a computer company, and with an IQ of 160, Sonny graduated from high school at just 15 and began studying computer science at Georgia Military College. Now, in addition to his academic success, Sonny also had a loving family, which would include his mother Nicole, stepfather James, and sister Ashley. Everything seemed to be going pretty well in Sonny's life until that fateful day in 2016. Just 6 days before Christmas, the Martinez police received a distressing call from James Brazel, reporting that his son, Sonny, had shot and killed his daughter, Ashley, and had also attempted to harm him and his wife. Why would Sonny do such a thing?
What made you want to kill your mother and father?
There wasn't really any motivation for it.
When investigators asked him why he planned to kill his family and then himself, he responded that he didn't know. Mr. Brazel also mentioned that Sonny was acting strange the night of the shooting. He said, his eyes were black, he was unfocused, he was not there. His expression, his voice, everything about him was not Sonny. It was not the Sonny we all know.
Yes.
Did that make you happy?
No.
Did it make you sad?
No, I didn't really feel much. It just sort of happened.
Dr. Allison Paginelli, a forensic psychologist, stated that after conducting interviews with Kim, administering multiple tests, and reviewing records, there were still numerous unanswered questions, particularly regarding his motive for killing his sister. Now, in court, she stated, while Sonny was able to remember these events, he also described that it was like watching himself or another person that looked like him doing those things.
I suppose I just saw her and I didn't recognize her as a son, but shot the first person I saw, I suppose.
Paginelli also said that based on her experience with Sonny, he fits the criteria for autism spectrum disorder that typically shows symptoms in early childhood. So in 2019, Kim pled guilty by reason of mental illness for felony murder, malice murder, 2 counts of possessing a firearm during a felony, and aggravated assault. He received a life sentence with the chance of parole after 30 years. Early April 2017, 16-year-old Cassandra Bjork and 18-year-old Johnny Ryder committed a heinous crime by murdering Cassandra's grandparents in their Lawrenceville, Georgia home. The police didn't discover the bodies until April 9th, estimating the couple had been dead for about a week.
He's still alive. What the heck? And then, Johnny finally, he was, scared to die. She shitted herself and peed herself.
It was later revealed that Cassandra and Johnny broke into their grandparents' house and brutally attacked him with a tire iron before ultimately stabbing him in the throat. After the gruesome act, they would seal up the house to prevent the smell of decay from escaping. And get this, the teens decided to throw a party, with drugs and alcohol, even ordering some Chinese food, while the decomposing bodies of the elderly couple lay upstairs.
Yes.
What did you guys do?
We just smoked some weed.
Okay, did you order food?
No.
Okay.
How long
did they order food?
No.
The gruesome scene wasn't uncovered until family members noticed the couple's absence and alerted the police. Despite multiple attempts by police to check on the house, they were unable to go inside as there was no obvious cause to enter the location by force. That was until the teens tried to murder Johnny's parents, but thankfully the parents were able to fight off their attackers. At the scene, officers found a car that belonged to the elderly Borg couple, the couple nobody had heard from in several days. The police conducted another welfare check, and this time, when nobody answered the door, officers went in, where they found Wendy and Randall Borg's bodies. Cassandra and Johnny were eventually arrested after a SWAT standoff ended with them attempting to take their own lives by cutting their wrists. Following medical treatment, the police began questioning them, and Cassandra eventually confessed to the terrible crime.
The plan was that we were both gonna get both of our families, but first we got my grandparents. Then that's why we went over to Johnny's house and we attacked his sister.
February 2nd, 2018, Johnny Ryder and Cassandra Borg pled guilty and were each handed 2 life sentences with the chance of parole in 60 years. November 2012. Lisa Knofel was tragically murdered by her foster daughter, Sabrina Zunich. The teen brutally stabbed Lisa almost 200 times, while her 2 younger daughters watched on in horror. Now, why would Sabrina commit such a horrific crime, and who is she exactly? October 27, 1994. Sabrina Zunich was born in Cleveland, Ohio, obviously. Her parents had problems with drugs and alcohol and had been in trouble with the law multiple times. At the age of 14, Sabrina was placed in a group home and spent several years moving in and out of foster care. At 16, she was placed with Kevin and Lisa Knofel in Willoughby Hills, Ohio. Now, Lisa was a social worker for the Cuyahoga County Department of Children and Family Services, specializing in sexual abuse cases. Kevin was a truck driver, and the Knofels had 2 daughters, Megan and Haley. Sabrina initially seemed to fit in well with this family and would even bond with their children. However, Sabrina began acting out, feeling like Lisa favored her own daughters over her. She then developed an inappropriate relationship with Kevin that turned sexual in the spring of 2012.
How do you get along with Kevin?
Kevin and me are cool. A long time ago, that if I need anything, that I could go to Kevin. And if it was major that she needed to...
Now, by that summer, Kevin and Lisa were having marital issues, with Kevin even mentioning divorce to friends. Around the same time, Sabrina asked a school friend if she knew anyone who would kill her foster mother. She mentioned that Lisa had a significant life insurance policy, and that Kevin had suggested they could start a new life together with the money. On October 27, 2012, Sabrina celebrated her 18th birthday, which meant that she could have left the foster care system. Instead, she decided to stay with the Knofels and finish high school. However, things took a dark turn. When Lisa started suspecting something was going on between Sabrina and Kevin, that made Sabrina feel like Lisa wanted her out of the house.
Me and Lisa have never been the best. I mean, you've never seemed to like me, and she's been wanting me out of the house.
Around the same time, Kevin started pressuring Sabrina. He told her that he would take his own life if Lisa wasn't dead. And so, Sabrina knew she had to act quickly. November 16th, the police got a call from 13-year-old Megan reporting that her sister was stabbing their mother.
911 was an emergency. What's going on? Who has a knife? My sister, and I just woke up because I was young.
When cops arrived, they found Sabrina holding a bloody knife and Lisa dead in the master bedroom, stabbed 178 times. Sabrina had also been injured and seemed to be in shock. She was taken into custody but didn't say much to the investigators at first.
Is not alive now.
What?
What is your thoughts on that?
It is. I'm sorry.
Now, while Sabrina was in jail, Kevin was busy collecting his wife's insurance money. He used it to pay off his debts, buy cars, a house in Florida, and even took some flying lessons. In August 2013, feeling abandoned by Kevin, Sabrina decided to cooperate with investigators and testify against him for the murder of his wife.
Instead of listening to death with the cooperation and planning with Kevin Kohee.
Kevin was arrested and charged with multiple crimes, including conspiracy to commit aggravated murder and sexual battery. He was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 30 years. August 2014, Sabrina pled guilty to aggravated murder and was also given life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. On October 12, 2023, a tragic event occurred in Hialeah, Florida. 13-year-old Derek Rosa brutally stabbed his mother, Irina Garcia, more than 40 times while she slept next to his sister. So what exactly happened? Irina had just put her baby daughter to bed and settled down for the night herself. Derek, her teenage son, was in the next room. The peaceful home would shatter in the worst way possible around midnight. Derek approached his mom's bed with a large kitchen knife in his hand and began stabbing her repeatedly. In total, he inflicted over 40 wounds, some while Irina screamed and fought to wake up. Thankfully, her newborn daughter in the crib next to her remained unharmed. So after this horrific act, Derek did something unexpected. Instead of running away or hiding, he reached out to an online friend and sent 3 photos, 2 of his deceased mother and 1 selfie, showing off his blood-stained hands. Hours later, Derek made a calm call to 911, reporting the crime. In released footage, he can be seen talking to the dispatcher, calmly giving his apartment number and asking if he should leave when he saw officers approaching. The dispatcher, keeping her cool, told him to stay put until the officers arrived.
The officers, I see officers. Do I leave? Do I leave my house?
Do not leave.
Okay.
Stay there, wait for your apartment.
When police arrived, they found Irina's lifeless body on the bed. Derek was then taken into custody without incident. During questioning, he provided details of that fateful night. He described the weapon he used, a large kitchen knife with a distinctive purple handle. He also described how he attacked his mom while she was sleeping, causing her to wake up screaming in horror.
And then she woke up?
Yes.
And did you say anything else to her? Or did she say anything to you or no?
No, she just screamed.
She just screamed?
Yes.
During this interrogation, Derek remained eerily calm, only showing signs of discomfort when asked about his motive for the murder. He asked to use the bathroom and, upon returning, requested a lawyer, leaving the question of why he did it unanswered. In a short conversation, Irina tells her son not to run, and he gets frustrated, asking her why she always tells him not to run. This seemingly ordinary exchange was one of the last times Irina spoke before her life was tragically taken by her own child. And as the legal process continues, the question of why Derek Rosa committed this terrible act remains. Was it a moment of uncontrollable anger, a result of deeper psychological issues, or something else entirely? We gotta stay tuned to the trial to find out, but sadly, Derek isn't the only kid on this list today who has killed his own mother in cold blood. On November 1st, 2018, in the peaceful suburban town of DeBary, Florida, a shocking crime would take place. 15-year-old Gregory Ramos committed the unthinkable act of murdering his own mother. Now, this tragic event began with a typical family argument. Gail Clevenger scolded her son Greg for his poor school performance, which quickly escalated into this heated argument. What anyone didn't know here was that this disagreement would lead to a horrifying outcome. Fueled by anger, Greg waited until Gail went to sleep, and then he started strangling her with his bare hands. The brutal act was slow and agonizing, taking around a half an hour for Greg to strangle his mom to death. He then decides to dispose of her body by using a wheelbarrow to transport it to a family van, and then drive it to the Holly Hill area to bury her behind a church. Now, in a desperate attempt to distance himself from the murder, Greg would call 2 of his friends, Dylan Sigleric and Brian Porras. Together, they staged a break-in at Ramos's home, ransacking the place to create a false narrative that Gail had been killed during a burglary gone wrong. However, that plan quickly fell apart because when police arrived, they immediately sensed that something was wrong. The burglary looked like it was staged, and the inconsistencies in the boys' stories only fueled their suspicions. It wasn't long before the cracks in Greg's plan became too big to hide. Now faced with mounting evidence and pressure from investigators, Greg confessed to everything within hours of his mother's murder.
Alright, so I got home, I got in an argument with my mom. She slapped me across the face, she began to hit me. She started beating me. I didn't like it, so I strangled her to death.
In his confession, he talked about how he killed his mom and the steps he took to cover up the crime. His demeanor suggested a disturbing level of pride in how well he believed he had executed his plan.
Threw her body in there, filled it back in, Made it look all nice and natural.
January 22nd, 2021. Gregory Ramos stood before a judge, finally facing the full weight of his actions. He expressed remorse and took responsibility for his crime. However, his apologies could do little to ease the pain of those who knew and loved Gail. In the end, the judge sentenced Greg to 45 years in prison. March 24th, 2014. Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Police officers faced a disturbing scene that would haunt them for years. They entered a small apartment to find blood smeared across the floor and splattered on the ceiling, with a boy's lifeless body cradled in his dead father's lap.
What should happen to someone that just killed their brother and their father? Die? Do you think a person should die?
The day would start with a frantic 911 call, where the caller said, "My dad tried to kill me. I shot him." When officers got there, they could hardly believe what they saw. Blood was everywhere. In the midst of the chaos, they found 14-year-old Eldon Gale Samuel III, the only survivor in the household, and he would later tell a terrifying story of what led to the tragic events. Eldon sat in the interrogation room, sharing a tale that seemed like something out of a horror movie. In a desperate act of self-defense and delusion, he admitted to killing his father, Eldon Samuel Jr., and his younger brother, Jonathan Samuel. Eldon explained that his father, high on prescription drugs and consumed by a fear of a zombie apocalypse, had attacked him and ordered him to leave the house, claiming that zombies were coming.
Did you just attribute him taking that medication as to that's what he thinks? No. Did he say anything about zombies tonight? Yeah. What did he say? He said that there might be zombies outside and stuff.
Eldon's childhood was far from ordinary. His father had instilled in him a strong belief of an impending zombie apocalypse. From a young age, Eldon Jr. had trained his son in handling weapons and surviving a post-apocalyptic world. That obsession with zombies wasn't just a passing phase. It was a significant part of their daily lives. Guys, the family was all set for a zombie apocalypse, no joke, with their camper packed full of survival gear like guns, knives, water, and canned food. They were ready to head off to the mountains at a moment's notice, where zombies couldn't reach them. Now what's more here is that Eldon was all hopped up on prescription painkillers after getting injured at work as a mechanic. His addiction now, combined with the intense fear of zombies, would create a dangerous situation where his sons faced physical and psychological abuse. Eldon Jr. would fire guns outside their home on a regular basis and make his sons do violent things like decapitating rattlesnakes. He would also get into these heated arguments with his oldest son, and one day things took a deadly turn. So according to Eldon III, this deadly incident started with his father firing a pistol outside their apartment. When he came back inside, the argument escalated. Samuel Jr., all high and paranoid, pushed Eldon twice in the chest, ranting about zombies. In a moment of panic and anger, Eldon grabbed a gun and shot his father in the stomach, then twice more. As his father crawled towards his younger brother's room, Eldon followed and shot him again, twice in the cheek and once in the head.
And you hit him in the face, but you don't think that did the job? No, because it didn't hit his brain. Okay, so then you took one more shot up higher to hit the brain.
But the violence didn't stop there. In a mix of fear and confusion, Eldon then turned to his younger brother, Jonathan, and tragically took his life as well. Eldon Gale Samuel III was charged with second-degree murder for his father's death and first-degree murder for his brother's death. He would get 10 years for his father's murder and 20 for his brother's. Acknowledging the complex events that led to this crime, the judge mandated for these sentences to be served concurrently. February 27th, 2021. 19-year-old Brian Kohee commits a brutal and senseless murder by taking the life of Warren Barnes, a 69-year-old homeless man. This totally wrecked the small community of Mesa County, Colorado. The horrific discovery of Kohee's crime started with a simple household task. Brian's mom was cleaning his room, organizing and putting things away, and then she stumbled on this large, mysterious container in his closet. Intrigued and worried, she decided to open it and was met with a sight that would haunt her forever. Inside, partially concealed within plastic bags, were the severed head and hands of Warren Barnes, Maggots were crawling out of the bags, which made the discovery even more horrifying. Brian's mom was in shock and called her husband right away. They called 911 together and reported the gruesome discovery, even admitting to the dispatcher that their son had a keen interest in death and mortality. So when the police asked Brian Kohee about what was in his room, his response was unsettling. He straight up told him, yeah, I believe a human head and hands. From that fella that went missing. I murdered him with a knife.
Parents have some concerns of some stuff they may have found in your room?
Yeah, I believe so.
And what would it be?
A human head and hands.
His matter-of-fact tone and lack of remorse were as chilling as the crime itself. And when they asked him why he did it, Brian simply answered, I always wondered what murder would feel like.
I didn't take my medicine, and plus for years I was wondering what murder would feel like, because Reed, Ted Bundy, and the Zodiac, they all say murder is the best feeling in the world. So I'm like, I'm gonna try that.
As for Brian Kohee's victim, choosing Warren Barnes was deliberate and calculated. Brian targeted Barnes, a homeless man who was well known in the community for his love of reading. In his twisted logic, Brian thought that murdering someone on the margins of society would satisfy his morbid curiosity without drawing much attention. So on this fateful day, Brian meticulously planned his actions. Armed with a knife and carrying 3 pairs of gloves with him, he attacked Barnes and dismembered his body.
Destroyed his eyes by stabbing them. Okay. And then I cut off his hands. I put those in plastic Ziploc bags. And then I cut off his right arm at this joint and at this joint.
He then stored the severed head and hands in his closet, perhaps like gruesome trophies. In the trial, we would get details about his state of mind and the events leading up to that murder. In a sanity evaluation during the trial, it would uncover that Brian had spent a significant amount of time researching serial killers and murder, possibly indulging in a dark interest rather than actively plotting a specific crime. In court, he would plead guilty, but cited insanity as a defense. However, the prosecution argued that Brian's actions were clearly premeditated, as evidenced by his careful planning and execution of the murder. Now, the court ultimately found Brian Kohee guilty of first-degree murder, 2 counts of tampering with a deceased human body, and tampering with evidence. He was given life in prison without the possibility of parole. Judge Richard Gurley, who presided over the case, described it as one of the most horrific he had ever seen in his 37 years with the criminal justice system.